All right, everyone. So we're here, and if anyone knows this site, well, it's pretty popular. Again, I really wish I could try not use it as much, but the other, the way this all works out, it's left me a little course here. But all right, so so the way so the way we're going about this is, you might have noticed that this side right there is looking a little darker. That's because I didn't turn on one of the lights that I normally use to record this. Now, initially, I wanted to have all the lights off, and I know I have mentioned in the past how I would prefer sometimes just having both lights off, and then I just have that going and that light there lately to just sort of add some atmosphere, mood uh, to this, right? It'll set a visual tone for what you're trying to watch. You know, sort of how it is normally, how you would experience anime, right? Right. Gone are the days where you could just watch it on your phone through this site and just enjoy pretty much. So that's what you want to try and convey with this. But again, the bitrate doesn't really show up that great when you turn off all the lights. As even some of my first videos would test to that. Even though I did have a light on, but the bitrates just weren't that great. Especially with how many lumens, um, or rather lack of lumens, from those early lights and videos that the early lights that I used in my early videos, or rather a lack of lighting, just contribute to the video having low bit rate, and sometimes you look very kind of pixelated, not pixelated, or like at least fuzzy, like just not clear. So that's what you wanted to try and convey, and not that, but we wanted to try and convey a more just dark, because that's what we're going to be watching. We're going to be watching sort of darker horror anime. And you did try it with that one, but again, the bitrate's too low. And okay, well, now you have that one, and that one's that light maybe would be enough. But no, it's still right. So one light has to be on, and this light does still set it. And maybe you could even add other stuff that isn't pretty, right? It's not pretty, to sort of try and convey the fact that no, this is gonna be a bit of a rougher watch. A lot of classic stuff that I had never gotten around to, but I'll do that now. But another reason was because because this is happening either late night, in the middle of the night. It can really help, just not make it seem like day, because when you have all the lights on, it does seem very day-ish. And sometimes, right, you can see that extended past to just your little setup here. So that's kind of another reason, right? Because it's sort of like, oh, I'm watching this late at night. This is my thing. Oh, no one knows I'm watching anime late at night. It's just your thing by itself. Maybe you're not responsible to be watching it late at night, but yeah. But that's your thing. It's just your own thing. But obviously that's not true, because I'm recording it. But that's sort of why I wanted to try and convey that experience of that hobby. That's sort of, ooh, no one knows you do this, and it's just your own personal thing. And right, because when I first thought about doing this, it was just right. I hadn't even gotten that, because that's not great, but it really does add a visual interest and makes it look a lot nicer, especially when you record. I was just gonna initially just have it all be crank up the brightness on your monitor and have that just reflect that, but it really doesn't look that nice. So yeah, just one light there, and that light there, and that lack of lighting in this general area does convey it enough that it's a little darker. It's sort of like an after dark type of thing. All right, so let's just get started with this. We're going to be watching Wicked City, as you've probably seen from the title. But we also have Perfect Blue, Genocide, which I think I'm going to have to heavily cut out, and Biohunter. What is this other one? Oh, it's called Taito Monogatari or Capital Story. OVAs. Right, Paprika. I don't know, Paprika's too pretty, so I don't know. There is a horror stamp on it, right? Thriller, sci-fi, psychological mystery movie, fantasy. There's also Violence Jack. Yeah, we're definitely not gonna get through all this. Air date from 86 to 90, and that's just some of the stuff we got through the horror genre on this side with all the green. But we definitely should not be. Yeah, I wasn't aware that Genocyber was actually like an OVA that's consisting of 5 episodes on here. I know I definitely should have done this on my anime list to really hunt down more stuff, but again, the other side I was using to just watch it all just proved to be more. And it is by that version, but it's just no, you run into walls and just stuff that isn't very good. That's not very well set up. So I guess you did enter your information there, but so I guess it's whatever. You know, they'll be getting your. They do have your information for payment on the other side. So this is sort of this weird argument about, well, no matter what, you're supporting the creators still, but they're probably not going to get a big chunk of that. So let's just watch this one. All right. So Wicked City, it's also Demon, Beast City, Supernatural Beast City, Yoju Toshi. I don't know. Let's just watch this. It's a movie. And we'll see how this goes. All right. Wow, there's really not like a master on this. That's like it's like 1080p, even the options here are very limited. Okay, everything seems to be working well. It still doesn't look like. So,
随分大胆なんだな。
せっかちはお嫌い？
ああ、こう見えても俺って結構ムードを大切にする方でね。
I love old anime.
たくましいのね。素敵だわ。
女は魔物だ。店での雰囲気からは思いもよらない変貌ぶりだ。俺の期待とは随分違ったが、まあこういうのも悪くはないが。
Okay, is this where the sinister thing starts happening? Yep. Damn it.
気づくのが遅かったよね。もうお前は用済みよ。楽にしてあげる。命拾いしたわね。まあいい。欲しいものはもらったわ。
かな子はどうした？
女のことが心配？殺しちゃいない。あの店の化粧室で眠らせてあるわ。また会いましょう。
々にそんなおもちゃが通用すると思うのか。心配するな。こいつは普通のおもちゃと出来が違うのさ。そいつは結構。
That was awesome.
どうやら相棒らしいな。助かったよ。
こちら側の腕利きガードの割には素晴らしいですわね。
正直な感想を痛み入る。俺は
滝連三郎。年齢25歳。身長180センチ。体重65キロ。血液型 AB。
Oh, right, Japan's obsessed with blood types for some reason.
月給税込み20モデルが嫌がるってスポンサーがつかないの。
だろうな。君の美しさは完璧すぎる。
Mhm.
多少嫌味なくらいだよ。
ありがとうって言っとくわ。それより急ぎましょう。もうそろそろ着く頃よ。
職務に忠実すぎるところも嫌味だね。ま、よろしく頼むよ。
Your dedication to your job is a sad thing.
ガードには向こう側の女もいると聞いていたが、こりゃこりゃ予想以上のべっぴんじゃの。ブレイナ、何をする？
ブレ
He's wearing sunglasses at night. Come on. Yeah, this is pretty suggestive.
その気の強いところも昔のままだ。やはりあの時力ずくで俺のものにしておくべきだった。
体を奪えば心まで従うと思ってるのね。
So cliche.
試してみるか？お前を狂わせてやる。
I don't think that's how it works. And this is definitely assault.
その手は使えないわ。まあ、おじいちゃんたらすごく元気ね。
まだまだ若いもんには負けんぞ。
おじいちゃん、本当の極楽へ連れてってあげるわ。ジュゼッペ・マイヤーと。
貴様、魔界の過激派か。
せいぜい逃げ回るのね。それはあなたのことでしょう。滝、早く逃げて。マイヤートさんを頼むわ。
I don't get it.
どうだ、裏切り者の末路をしっかりと見るがいい。この女は魔界の住人だ。にもかかわらず、お前たちとの休戦協定、まやかしの平和に加担した。その上、昔の男までその手で葬り去った許せん女だ。
Oh.
しばらく男たちの欲望に奉仕させ、その後でじっくり料理してやる。滝君、この女を救い出したくはないかね。君なら救えるかもしれん。どうだ、我々のところに来てみないかね。
どこにいる？
待ち。
素晴らしい快感でしょう。お前は私の思うがまま。答えなさい。お前たちの企みを。あの女、蒔絵とは関係したの？
She just got great, like
ちょうどいい。
like very messed up stuff.
恋人気分でデートってわけ。まあ、ピーチのもんじゃな。
あの男の体液の分析結果が出ました。推測通りです。
やはり遺伝子か。
ええ。
私は再生するのにもうしばらくかかる。頼むぞ。
お任せください。
So they're saying he might have specific gene.
また最大の難問は根血が不可能ということじゃ。ところが数千年来の相互努力が霊的変貌を促したか、数は少ないが明らかに根血可能の遺伝子を有する者たちが出現した。そして双方の研究者たちが選び出したベスト
In other words, them.
お前とマキエというわけじゃ。お前たちならこちらと向こう両方の。
Alright, so that was a pretty good movie, and I still enjoyed it. Very, very rough and so far, and actually not that long. I think it's just the perfect length, for a movie. The animation was really good, right? The lightning looked really good. All the colors great, and it does sort of. I mean, how far back does this go? Right, this is 80s stuff, and especially about they're pushing this sort of genetic aspect about, and right, so specifically what those of the demon world seem to, all their eyes are very specific to that. And are they representing sort of the xenophobic aspect of Nihongo's own country, right? Because they're very xenophobic about the foreigner part and wanting only being 100% Nihongo there. So is this their way of saying stop being xenophobic, right, for their own population, and that's why they're depicted as, well, the bad guys in this movie, right? Those that believe no, only from our world should, and you're the one that's, fornicating with the non from their world, right? Non-domestic stuff. All right, well, I mean, that's what I think it is. I think it's just trying to push that, just to try and stop the xenophobia in Japan. And there are driving this genetic aspect, but was genetics really that advanced at the time for them to say, no, they know it's advantageous to have it be from both backgrounds. It's advantageous to the child, but was that really known that well at the time? And, well, yes, that's a very generalized view of it, about why mixing is advantageous. It's sort of the way it's, like in supplements, just like labels are labels, right? Because each one of those ingredients could be, have been shown to improve this and that. It kind of, with the genes, right, there's no way of telling how these genes will actually interact with each other or work together or all come together, just like how each one of those ingredients in supplements might not necessarily indicate how they all work together, because they might not all work together, right? So all those ingredients might just not end up working well together, even though on their own they might be working just fine. But together, that's another aspect about genes that we still don't understand, right? Because these genotypes can produce specific phenotypes, but there's still no way of knowing how it's all going to come together, how those genotypes are going to communicate with each other, and how the end result would be. But just generally, it does seem to indicate, yes, it's this way. But these days, we can pretty much just predict, okay, this gene is probably going to cause you this disease and stuff. And there's definitely only, just like how surfacely people understand, oh, it's just advantageous. It's just advantageous. But what if it's you have to go more in depth? What if you both have a certain different copies of this maybe hereditary disease that could be passed on, and your child could end up with two copies in that, right? The specific example being like sort of a Chris Hemsworth, where he found out he has two copies of a gene for Alzheimer's or something like that. So this could definitely be taken the wrong way about like the way eugenics has been treated in the past, and they're not really saying that. They're just, I think this is just mainly for the message of stop being xenophobic, Japan, Nihongo. But you would kind of have to just, I don't want to go too Gattaca into this because genetics is still very ongoing and fairly complicated, and there's also no way of knowing how it all comes together, right? All these genes might not come together that well, and you might inherit copies that end up just going against each other, sort of like how your genes stop recognizing the other one, or when specific conditions where a child has to just choose between one type of otherwise the immune system's gonna go with this, and it becomes a very complicated topic. But I still think that just surfacely they're just trying to tell the population stop being xenophobic. It's advantageous to do this. It's better this way. But they are touching on the sort of trauma-ish aspect here, right? Because we know that rape is definitely a topic that Japan does touch on more in their media and anime and the hentai. But they do touch on it, so they're probably saying, right, because the way the criminals are depicted here, they're very competent, and they seem to use genetic information. They're sort of organized, and right, they collected his DNA sample, and that's how they know. So they're using science. So it's sort of this criminals using science aspect that's probably gonna scare people, but it's sort of the thing with it. You can't just, if a tool's there and there's no regulations, it might end up being used like that. That's kind of the problem with that. But at the end of the day, the best, I guess, quote unquote, best scientists and stuff have already worked at dealerships. So what they might get, like the just basic understanding from those lab samples or tests or something, they're still not going to be as sophisticated. But that's right. Yeah, they didn't just use grape like once. They used like word for ex-boyfriend. Using that, and maybe it's used a lot because that's probably still the way that I guess people get results. But the way it's because it was her ex-boyfriend and still did that. So is there another subject matter where, well, if the ex is sort of, is there a sense that he feels entitled or something like that essentially does lead to assault, and them using that kind of assault and sort of as a way to just lure the blackguard. And there's still that, and they kind of don't really touch on the traumatic aspect of using that kind of assault, or they're just saying, well, they just do that and it happens and just accept it and they moved on. But maybe they don't want to touch too much on it, but they did use it twice, right, for ex-boyfriend, and then when she was captured. So for like them to use it twice and not really touch on the traumatic, maybe they are just skipping over because the way it's treated in Japan, it's just, we'll just get on, just so I guess it's not bad, and it does, the movie does come together quite nicely, right? Because they're depicting sort of like, oh, he's too romantic, too much of a romantic to be in this, and yet it's still, they do touch on it. That's probably why they were hinting, that's why he's here, because that's just the way he is. He's just too much of a romantic, which means it's probably going to, so there is some foreshadowing about that's probably why it is, right? First, you see her, they say, oh no, she's lovely, and of course he's too much of a romantic. So from that, you already know yeah, are they trying to pair them up? And it is kind of a thing, tropey, what it is like, oh, male lead and female lead, just to pair them up. That's the way, sort of the way the story just ends up working better. But they are trying to touch an interesting scientific aspect, but they're not really delving in too much into the science, which even at the time there, it's probably gets very confusing, especially with the way in genetics those genes are just seemingly arbitrarily named, or there's not really a good system in there, like nomenclature and chemistry, but fairly interesting stuff. But so there is still a bit of a eugenics aspect in here, and they did it way before Gattaca did it. But Gattaca aspects it. But Gattaca explores this in a different kind of way than they do here. It's a bit more nuanced, and more of the social aspect of it, and the discrimination of that. But so very, very nice. But right, in Japan still had its thing about being obsessed with blood types, and now it's a genetics part. All right, but I guess it's a good way to get your country to stop being so xenophobic. And to touch on this, that no, it is better for this for your child, but saying that no, that other part might not be happy, and you might get seen as this, and also touches on the criminals just using basic science to sort of just a bit. They're touching on how when it starts to get a bit too sophisticated for them, but the other part maybe not so much. But there's more stuff to be explored there, definitely. But Surfacely does come together quite nicely, with some raw stuff and some comedic aspects with the old man and stuff. Just fairly nice. All right. Well, I mean, I really want to keep exploring this, and maybe I will get some more video essays and stuff on this, because it's interesting to see maybe how they were viewing the world at that time, and just trying to get their population to stop being so xenophobic, because it's still apparently a thing in Japan. So